Hi guys, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this next eclipse preview. This is the April 12th live call for the full access group. And I thought it would be a perfect time to get on, given that we are a week away from the next eclipse cycle. So a week away from the next new moon, a little over a week away from the next new moon, which is an eclipse, a very powerful and potent one at that, as they seem to be increasing in potency. They have been increasing in potency ever since the eclipses in January of 2020. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I thought first thing to do would be go over a quick fact sheet about these eclipses, because there are some unique characteristics just on the from an overarching perspective when it comes to this eclipse cycle, if we compare it to the last eclipse cycle. So first things first, we have this eclipse cycle coming in on April 20th. And as you may or may not know, eclipse cycles run 6 months. So this one will be running from April 20th to October 14th. And that means that we are going to have, like all eclipse cycles, 6 moon cycles of upgrades, or what I call sub-chapters of a eclipse storybook that's unfolding. And I'll be going over the themes and what we can anticipate as far as the challenges as well as upgrades that are coming in for us, or the intention of the upgrades that are coming in as part of the challenges that might be presenting. Now, it is a solar, we have 2 eclipses, a solar eclipse in Aries, and Aries is all about pioneering new ways forward. This is the second Aries New Moon. We had the Aries New Moon last month, starting on March 21st. That we are now completing. And as I said, that was more about a redefining. Because we had 2 Aries new moons, it was almost as if we were redefining in the first one and then getting ready to really take off with the second one. So the solar eclipse in Aries has a theme of pioneering something forward. And then 2 weeks later, we have a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And a lunar eclipse is something that we have to adjust to, something that we have to transmute or shift or make some necessary shifts with. And so a lunar eclipse in Scorpio is asking us to adapt or change something about us in order apologies for that, guys, in order to pioneer something forward. All right. The next thing I wanted to say is that this is a north node solar eclipse, whereas the last one was a south node solar eclipse. Now, just in a general sense, south nodes are usually talking about something that we are comfortable with, that we have to it's kind of comfort zones that we are in that usually need to be transmuted, that we need to kind of make more conscious. And so there's a sense of purifying when it comes to a solar eclipse conjunct the south node, which was all about the last 6 months. This time it's a solar eclipse on the north node, which is more about expansion, expanding into new territories. Now, important to keep in mind that everything that we have gone through and endured over the last 6 months, I know it's been quite a trying eclipse cycle that we are coming out of, but everything that we have gone through has been about preparing us, and I've been talking about that quite a bit on the membership, in the membership group, that everything that we've been working on, the new alliances, we're all there to help us really step into this new redefinition of self that we are coming into over this next week as we get ready to step into this next new moon. So I think that everyone can breathe a sigh of relief that it's no longer about purifying, it's about expanding and building upon the work that we have gone through over these last 6 months. All right. Now, something interesting about this next eclipse cycle, and that begins at this eclipse cycle, and interestingly enough, from what I've seen, that usually this shift usually happens or has shifted around the time of an eclipse cycle, but we now have new moons in the last decan rather than, sorry, let me step back. I was talking about the next bullet. The next thing about this eclipse cycle is that these new moons are going to be in the last decan of each sign, not the first. And remember, the last 6 months, it's been new moons at the very first few degrees of each decan, meaning it was kind of powerful resets in regards to those in regards to those signs, all part of the purification process. Now we have new moons in the last decan of each sign, meaning the last 10 degrees of each sign. And so there's a sense of we're building upon wisdom that was gained. There's a sense that we should know by now, we should know better as we go through each of these new moon cycles over this next eclipse cycle. Now I'm going to get to the part that I thought I was going to be talking about, and that is that each of the full moons happening, the 6 full moons that are happening over this next eclipse cycle, and something that just shifted with this new moon, this new eclipse cycle, is that we will now, for the next year, the full moons will be they will not be in the exact opposite sign. So, you know, for the last 6 months, we've had a new moon at 0 degrees, and then 2 weeks later, a full moon at around 15 degrees of each sign, because remember, between new moons and full moons, there's 2 weeks, and the sun moves 1 degree per day. So from 0 to 15 is about 2 weeks. Well, this time, because the new moons are starting at the very end of a degree, that means the sun will have moved into the next sign, and the full moon, which has the sun in one sign and the moon in the exact opposite of that sign. So that means that the full moons will not be in the exact opposite sign of the new moons. I hope that makes sense. So in this case, we have an Aries new moon, and normally the exact opposite sign of Aries is Libra. And we had that this last moon cycle because we had a new moon at 0 degrees of Aries. And then 15 days later, we had the full moon in Libra, the exact opposite sign. But now, since we have an Aries new moon at the 29th degree of Aries, the sun will move into the sign of Taurus basically the next day. And 2 weeks later, the full moon will happen in the exact opposite sign of Taurus, which is Scorpio. So when I've seen this, where the full moons are not in the exact opposite sign of the new moon, there's a sense of destabilization. It's almost as if we're entering a period that feels destabilizing, like structures are shifting. So that's just something that I noted. I'm not sure if other astrologers would really be picking up on that. We have, when it comes to retrogrades and any particular aspects or unique aspects, we have 2 Mercury retrogrades this eclipse cycle, one in the sign of Taurus and the other in Virgo. And we're getting ready for a Mercury retrograde in Taurus. As you know, we're already in pre-shadow at the time that I'm recording this. So Mercury will be going retrograde from April 21st through to May 15th. And then Mercury will be going retrograde once more in the sign of Virgo from August 23rd through September 15th. So we have 2 full retrogrades happening within this eclipse cycle. We also have a Venus retrograde happening in the sign of Leo. Venus retrogrades about once every 18 months. So not every year do we experience a Venus retrograde, but we will do this year, and we will in this eclipse cycle, and that will be happening from July 23rd through to September 4th. In addition to that, we will have an entire Pluto retrograde happening during this eclipse cycle. Pluto will be going retrograde on May 1st, and then coming direct on October 11th. Remember, Pluto just went into the sign of Aquarius, and it will go retrograde on May 1st, moving back into Capricorn on June 11th, where it will be for the rest of the year. It'll be in the sign of Capricorn for the rest of the year, but it will go direct on October 11th, just as we get ready to complete this eclipse cycle, right? We also have Pluto squaring the nodes pretty much throughout the entirety of this eclipse cycle, which is super, super, super significant. So not only do we have massive things going on with Pluto having moved into the sign of Aquarius and going to be dipping back into the sign of Capricorn, but we will also have Pluto squaring the nodes in very close proximity at the time of this eclipse, but coming into exact around the midpoint of the eclipse, no coincidences there, after it is moved back into the sign of Capricorn. And that is highly, highly significant. It really means that we are going to face major systemic change, a need to be able to discard the past, face fears as it relates to discarding the past, and really level up to a new state of consciousness when it comes to the North Node. At that time, the North Node will still be in the sign of Taurus. So really self-reliance, self-sufficiency, values, etc. A new way, a new systemic way of handling a North Node in Taurus themes, which again is self-reliance and consistency and value, doing things of integrity, etc. Now, we also have another major aspect happening, and that is that we are going to have the nodal axis, the destiny line, the north and south nodes, switching from the sign of the axis of the Taurus and Scorpio, where it's been since January of 2021, moving to the axis of Aries and Libra. That means that this is the last eclipse with the Taurus-Scorpio dynamic. We're going to be moving away from the major themes as it relates to doing things of integrity, really understanding power versus force, and self-sufficiency. Now once we move to this, it's about, okay, I know how to be self-sufficient. Now I'm going to be pioneering new ways forward. So it is interesting that we have a solar eclipse in Aries kind of giving us this sense of transitioning into this theme with the nodal axis switching signs to Aries and Libra. The South Node will be in the sign of Libra, so it's really about how to pioneer ways forward diplomatically, right? How taking initiative, but also thinking of others at the same time. And one last and final bullet here, the other retrogrades happening during this eclipse cycle. Saturn will be going retrograde on June 17th and will be coming direct after we complete the eclipse cycle on November 4th. Neptune will be going retrograde on July 1st and then going direct once again after this eclipse cycle is complete on December 6th. Uranus will be going retrograde on August 29th, coming direct on November 27th. This is, not November 27th, January 27th. I'll correct that. So you'll be able to see the correct date there. And last but not least, Jupiter is, let me go back to that. Jupiter will be going retrograde on, I'll just fast forward through these, will be going direct on September 4th. Going retrograde on September 4th and coming direct on December 31st. And what's interesting about Jupiter going retrograde on September 4th is that is the day that Venus comes direct. All right, so moving on, as you know, I always like to throw in the Sabian symbols for the eclipses. And for these set of eclipses, again, we have two eclipses, one on April 20th, another on May 5th. For the Aries New Moon solar eclipse, meaning what are we bringing in? What is beginning? What are the upgrades that are happening? Is the realization of natural boundaries, focalization. It seems like we need to really be able to bring our ideas into the tangible world and needing to work with the tangible world in order to do that. So the Sabian symbol has a lot of themes related to that. And we do see, I will get into a little bit about the aspects happening with this Aries New Moon solar eclipse. It is in a semi-square to Venus. Mars is approaching a square to Chiron, and Mercury is, at the time of this new moon, is making some aspect. I think it's about to go retrograde. Yeah, it's about to go retrograde. That's what I wanted to say. And so there's a sense that we're realizing that we're realizing we've stepped into a whole new paradigm, that there are limitations that we need to overcome. There are some obstacles that need overcoming. And so I do think that this concept of natural boundaries and limitations and needing to circumnavigate that is going to be a big theme for the next 6 months. On May 5th, we have the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse. That's 2 weeks after the Aries new moon, as full moons are always happen 2 weeks after the new moons. And so a lunar eclipse, which is always a full moon happening at a full moon, and a solar eclipse always associated with a new moon. So we have the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th. The Sabian symbol for that is early steps in the development of a mind seeking to be attuned to a higher level of human evolution. And the key word for that is future-oriented growth. So again, this is about building upon what we've already upgraded ourselves on over the last 6 months, rather than purifying. It's a time of expansion and building upon something. And it seems like we are really focused on circumnavigating limitations and obstacles and really being propelled forward or being asked to discard our understanding of the past and really step into the future in major ways, and certainly experiencing some boundaries and limitations maybe within ourselves that need to be overcome. So with that, I thought I'll go into each of the 6 moon cycles over the next 6 months and apply the theme, as you know, I like to do, just to kind of give us an overarching understanding. So we know that there's an Aries new moon and it's a solar eclipse and it's about pioneering something, and it's a Scorpio full moon is about adapting. So we're going to be adapting by pioneering something forward. And Scorpio also has the theme of long-term commitments, doing things for the long term from a more empowered state. So month number 1, this Aries new moon cycle really for me has this theme of pioneering for the long term. All right, moving on to month number 2, which will be the Taurus new moon happening on May 19th. 2 weeks later, followed by the Sagittarius full moon. Again, they're not in the exact opposite signs. I'm calling this expanding into new asset classes. I really get the feeling that we're going to have to broaden our understandings of our priorities, our resources, and our assets, or what we consider assets. And that may even include our sense of self-worth with that. Now, just keep in mind, this is the preview of the next eclipse cycle. I haven't set everything in stone, so you might see a slight difference in the wording of these titles for each of the moon cycles within this next eclipse cycle. All right, month number 3 is the Gemini New Moon, happening on June 18th with a Capricorn full moon 2 months later. And this is, for me, with a Gemini, we're always updating our sense of communication and how we think or how we communicate and express ourselves. But now that we have a Capricorn full moon, again, not the opposite sign, but the opposite sign of the next sign of Cancer, there seems to be a restructuring that's going on with paradigms, a restructuring with the way that we communicate or express with each other. So in this one, it's about establishing, again, the theme of restructuring, given the Capricorn full moon, establishing a new communication channels in that month. Now, I do want to say that it is during that month, actually month number 3 and month number 4 seem to be probably the more intense. This is a Gemini new moon that is directly square Neptune, so there's going to be a lot of confusion, and with the Capricorn full moon, it's almost as if we're waking up to a harsh new reality and a new way of having to communicate or connect with each other. It is also the moon cycle that Venus is in pre-shadow at that time. And so with a Venus pre-shadow, again, I've written articles about retrogrades, and Venus would apply to that. But Venus in pre-shadow indicates that we might be, during a pre-shadow time, we might be making decisions or establishing resources or connections that might need to be refined during the retrograde. We might realize that it's not exactly as we had perceived. We weren't operating with all the understanding of the full understanding or perspective of what we needed. And that's what happens during a Venus retrograde. So Venus will be in pre-shadow in that month, in that Gemini new moon cycle. And so it does seem like there's a little bit of a harsh reality that is we're stepping into or awakening into as we establish new communication channels. And of course, month number 3 means that we are entering the midpoint of the eclipse soon after that. It's actually a week into the Cancer new moon cycle at the first quarter moon that we officially get to the midpoint of this eclipse within the Cancer new moon cycle. And so much is happening at that time. Remember, at a midpoint of the eclipse, I use the analogy each month within the moon cycle that at the new moon, we're planting a seed, and at the full moon 2 weeks later, it's like the sprouts are sprouting. Well, the midpoint acts like that sprout, but applying it to the eclipse cycle, where at the time of the eclipses is the time that seeds are planted, and the time of the midpoint of the eclipse is when they start to sprout, or you can see the sprouts above the surface, or things start to manifest themselves as it relates to the theme. In this case, needing to adapt to lots of systemic change by pioneering new ways forward. So in month number 4, we have a Cancer new moon on July 17th. And it is in that moon cycle that we reach the midpoint a week later at the first quarter moon. But not only that, the nodal axis switches signs in that week as well. And Venus then goes retrograde. So a lot going on around the time of the midpoint of the eclipse. And then 2 weeks after the Cancer new moon, we have the Aquarius full moon on August 1st. Quite major. But the themes, it looks like, it appears to be that in month number 4, the theme for that month is about securing the right networks, maybe having to move away from one group of people, shifting to another, or establishing the right communication channels beyond when it comes to a larger audience or a larger scale network of people. All right, moving on to month number 5. This is the Leo new moon. Leo new moons are, let me just quickly go back to the Cancer new moon. Cancer new moons are all about establishing an emotional foundation or upgrading our sense of emotional foundation. And so that's why the sense of security and with Aquarius full moon about finding kind of the soul tribe, the right soul tribes, applies to that securing of the right networks. In month number 5, we have the Leo new moon, and this is where I think things start to ease up a bit. And a Leo new moon is always about creating something new, a sense of inspiration, a sense of adventure, spontaneity. And then we have the Pisces full moon 2 weeks later. And in that Leo new moon, we have the second Mercury retrograde. We also have Venus going direct and Jupiter going retrograde, because that Leo new moon runs from August 16th through September 14th. And it is a Leo new moon that I'm titling Collectively Creating. It seems like we have finally established some sense of grounding to be able to create something new going forward in that moon cycle. And in month number 6, with the Virgo new moon cycle, a Virgo new moon is always about final refinements, tightening up ship, reorganizing, putting our creative ideas to work. So what we created or got inspired with in month number 5, we're putting it into service. We're putting it in, doing the work to actually make it work. And there seems to be a theme of servicing to others with this one, making a trine to Uranus. And again, this is the last moon cycle, one that's going to bring out the full the full harvest of what the eclipse is called for, which is about adapting to change through pioneering new things forward. And in this case, it's there seems to be a pioneering a new way to service others, new way of being of service to others, a new sense of purpose as well. And in that last moon cycle, Mercury will be going direct and completing its full retrograde cycle. It'll leave post shadow by September 30th. And then Venus will complete its full retrograde cycle by October 7th. And then, as I said, Pluto goes direct on October 11th. So yeah, quite a big eclipse cycle ahead of us. It is an eclipse, an Aries New Moon solar eclipse that is exactly square or 1 degree off the Pluto, which has just moved into the sign of Aquarius. Again, Pluto moving into the sign of Aquarius indicates major systemic change, like a radical, unexpected, kind of mind-blowing change. things that we might have not considered, something that comes out of nowhere, and needing to adapt to constant change and pioneering new ways forward. So think adapting and pioneering, adapting, pioneering. We're adapting to obstacles, changes that are coming in, could be sudden and unexpected, and then pioneering a new creative way forward. And that seems to be quite the major themes here. Now I'm going to go on to the next slide, which encapsulates everything that I just showed on the previous slide, except it just shows the new moons and the dates of them. But here, more specifically, I want to talk about the unconscious expressions and conscious expressions, because with everything that we undergo in our life, it all has to do about leveling up our sense of consciousness. Everything that's happening is about expanding our level of consciousness. That's the whole purpose as to why we are here in this earth plane and why we came here. So every eclipse is helping us or calling us to move from unconscious expressions to more conscious ones, to make the unconscious or the subconscious, or where we're working on from a kind of a robotic, just autopilot mindset to a more conscious and mindful mindset. So the main themes, and again, this might change, I might add new ones because this is just a preview, but so far the ones that really speak to me are, number one, how we deal with paradigm shifts, how we deal with major change going on. And unconscious expressions, especially with a new moon at the 29th degree of Aries, can be very warlike, it can be very aggressive, in a state of denial, using coercion and control to as a way to deal with it, and resisting change, because paradigm shifts have a lot to do with change. And the more conscious expression is saying, all right, well, there are certain things that we have to accept. This is the change that's coming in, just like all the technological advancements that are happening. And I know it can be very uncomfortable for people. Certainly for me, it's an uncomfortable thing. But the more conscious expression would be coming into acceptance of that and pioneering new creative ways forward. And of course, being Aries, making sure we're doing so with others in mind. Again, there is this theme of needing to do pioneer in ways that are diplomatic or considerate of others. Now, also a theme is dealing with obstacles, kind of like very much related to these paradigm shifts, but limitations. So we have these quantum leaps of change that we need to do, and either our what we know of reality to be requires our minds to wrap around something that's changing, and it's a major way. So we have a limitation of the mind, and we need to work with that limitation. Or it could be resources as well. We do have major changes going in the financial world. Seems to be there seems to be a indication of hyperinflation, or at least the dollar going into hyperinflation, or problems happening with the dollar. And if you're in business with accepting dollars, etc., or if you're using dollars like I am, or the dollar is directly related to your business, then we will need to deal with limitations. So there's an example of that. And so there could be a sense of, with unconscious expression, a sense of denial, rigidity in thinking. It can also be where we're using others or creating codependencies with others from a state of fear and panic because we're not willing to change. Whereas a more conscious expression, and this has a lot to do with the Mercury retrograde, is being able to manifest new pathways forward in regards to our assets, in regards to assets in general, our sense of self-worth. And when I'm talking about our assets, is that you are powerful. We are all powerful co-creators of reality. We have the power to change reality. And so that's mainly the asset that I'm talking about. And also expanding our understanding of our instincts and being able to navigate. There's so much about this Mercury retrograde in Taurus about being clued into signs, being clued into signs and synchronicities of our surroundings, in our surroundings, that are kind of helping us. And during the retrograde, the upcoming one that's happening from April 20th through May 15th, if we haven't done so in the pre-shadow, maybe retracing steps and going, actually that person was trying to help me, or that thing came in and I overlooked it back then, but it was actually the universe trying to send me a lifeline. So dealing with limitations through manifesting new pathways in regards to our assets or assets in general and our instincts. Then we have managing fear. And I think this is going to be a big one because Pluto square the Nodal Access also has a theme of surrendering, surrendering through empowered states, not falling into fear and forcing things, and certainly an unconscious expression, forcing our will upon others because we are in states of fear. There's a sense of escapism and denial, again, a lot of overlapping themes, whereas with the conscious expression, and also I do want to add that Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, spiritual practices that fortify faith and a sense of purpose. Again, there's going to be an increasing need to be able to go within, to meditate, to step away from the craziness, I think, of the external world, and really go within and connect even deeper with ourselves, as well as our abilities to manifest new realities forward. Again, this is all about pioneering new ways that we've never seen before. And last but not least, when it comes to engaging with others, Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius, making aspects to the Nodal Access. And again, with the Nodal Access, North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, this is about empowered bonding with others. And that's what we've been really learning over the last 6 months with this whole theme of alliances. So did we learn our lesson? Are we creating codependent, entangling, controlling dynamics in our relationship and money dynamics, where people are usurping our sense of autonomy or overstepping boundaries, or we're doing it to others? And let's face it, if that's what's happening to us, most likely we're doing it to someone, or we're doing it to ourselves, because everything is a reflection. And in the conscious expressions, this is about that empowered bonding that expands, that we feel a sense of expansion and a sense of purpose, and others feel an expansion and sense of purpose around us. So those are the big themes when it comes to the level ups that are happening. So I just want to just quickly go over a couple of other bullet points here. Again, it is important to note that the last 6 months have really been a source of preparation. And this last week of this moon cycle, this Aries New Moon cycle that began on March 23rd, was all about redefining ourselves. And there was going to be quantum leaps of redefining of ourselves. And coming into the harvest of that just days before this eclipse, around April 19th and 20th. And so we have quite a powerful week from here to the next eclipses, where we're really stepping into a new definition of ourselves that should be ready to face this next chapter of our life. And I say should be because we should have been doing the work all along. I hate the word should. We'll learn the lesson regardless. The whole intention is for everyone to rise up, and they'll do so at their own time. But certainly the more that we take this journey a little bit more serious, really heeding the call to go within, the easier it gets as we navigate. I say that because I think it's going to be a difficult time for everyone, no matter what the level of consciousness. But of course, those with higher states of consciousness have been doing the work, have those spiritual tools in their toolbox to be able to navigate. Again, the most intense months that I see on this is month number 3 and month number 4, the Gemini New Moon cycle and the Cancer New Moon cycle. Again, the need to face systemic change that we're going to be needing to pioneer in a diplomatic way, keeping that in mind, leveling up our instinctual navigational know-how, meaning really attuning to signs and synchronicities, paying attention to that. Again, that requires a state of mindfulness and being able to step away from the chaos of daily life. A mindset that's ready for change, a mindset that's attuned and ready to level up to higher states of consciousness. I think we're going to have our minds a bit blown, even for those that have come into greater states of intuition and synchronicities, etc. I think we're going to have a level up when it comes to that. So that's exciting. And a readiness to adapt our relationships and our asset classes. I think that's just across the board, especially with a Scorpio full moon in the sign of Taurus, in the sign of Scorpio, and a readiness to redirect and go with the flow approach. Now, important to note that as with any eclipse, there is eclipses, and I've always used the analogy of kind of like the curtain closing on a theater stage, and the props and the characters are shifting. The characters are changing their costumes, changing their outfits, and there's people behind the scenes putting the new scene in place. And so as with any eclipse, as we start to approach it, it's like reality starts to shift in a major way. New people start coming into our lives. Other people get eclipsed out. New realities, new surroundings might be coming in. Maybe we're starting a new job or moving to a new place. Usually there's major change that happens in an eclipse. So while we always want to set intentions around any new moon, there's also there's a sense of things being faded and out of our control in many ways within eclipse. But as you know, with setting intentions, I like to suggest that we do so not from a force-driven motive, but from an empowered mindset. And so one of the intentions is to be able to adapt to the changes that come with any eclipses, but this one particularly so, as well as being able to see the higher perspective. So setting intentions around that. I'm able to see the higher perspective things. If things put me into panic, I can step back, get centered, and see where the universe or God or source is trying to take me with these changes that might initially be causing me fear. And then with an Aries New Moon solar eclipse about pioneering, adapting, needing to adapt and pioneer new ways forward, maybe setting intentions of a readiness, being ready for that, and embodying the mindset and that vibration of that. So that's what I have, guys. And of course, I will have the month ahead report sometime next week about this Aries New Moon, getting into the specifics of month number 1 that will move from April 20th through May 19th. But that was the intention of this, was just to bring a little bit of a preview. See if I can get out of here for you guys, given that we are a week away. And I'm going to try to be a little bit, I'm going to try to give more of these previews as I go forward, because I know I'm someone that likes to do updates, around the time of the new moon. And there's a reason for that. Sometimes I think with astrologers that are giving insights or updates in regards to new moons or full moons, and sometimes they do it 2 weeks away. It's almost like you're setting the mindset that it's here now, that there's no work that is being done from the time that they're watching the video to the time that it happens. And as you know, with the moon cycle, that's just not the case. We have another week, the last quarter moon. That means that we have to release an old version of ourselves to be able to level up and receive in the harvest of what this new moon cycle is called for, which is redefining ourselves. And if we get too ahead of ourselves, then we miss being in that position to better utilize the energies at the time of this next eclipse. So, but given that, I will start doing more of these preview type of videos and live call sessions for you guys. All right, so that's what I have. And again, if you have any questions, please do feel free to send them in. I would love to answer them. All right, bye for now, guys.